Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live stream. I am your host, as always, Francesca Fiorentini. You've seen me on the thing and that other thing, and one time, that one thing. What's up? What's going on? I am tired. We lost an hour, and god damn it. Couldn't we have just skipped daylight savings this entire time? Like, why haven't we saved enough daylight? Huh? You think? Eh? What are we doing with all this daylight? Not going outside, not hanging out with people. You guys vaccinated? Anyway, so glad to have you here. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the stream, make sure to subscribe. We're like 70 subscribers away from 20,000, which is a mini little milestone, but I am definitely going to pop a mini bottle of champagne once we get there. Don't have it with me, but I will pop it in my mind. So please subscribe to this channel right now. And also, if you're on Twitch, follow this channel. You can subscribe as a tier 1, 2, 3 subscriber. You get all the emotes. I think I know what that means. We have such a good show for you today. Holy shit. My God, these guests, it just keeps getting better. I feel like this is a good show. I feel like my show crushes it and your show's trash. Okay, thanks. Oh my God, Anthony Atamanuik, comedian and creator of The President Show, is on the show tonight. He's so fucking funny. He's so also like incredibly left and has amazing politics. And I feel like everyone needs to know that, even though it doesn't get you that far in Hollywood. Also, seminal climate activist, organizer, thinker, badass, Bill McKibben, don't tell him I said that, is going to be on the program very, very shortly. We're going to talk to him about a Green New Deal. We're going to talk to him about Biden's climate plan, which isn't a Green New Deal, and why. And we're going to talk about, how many years we have to turn this little thing around. We've got to stop doing all the bad things. So stick around. I'm glad to have you here, but stick around. Don't go nowhere. Also, we have a Patreon for this show. This show is free of sponsors for now. I am begging for a granola company or a weird bra company that has like cups that are like, 32A and then like 35B on the left. You know what I mean? One of those bra companies to just sponsor, just pick up this show. But until then, patreon.com/Bituation Room. My God, you've all been so generous and it's been real fun. And you get early access to bonus content. We got a bonus show coming up this Friday. We're going to talk all about New York politics, Cuomo, Yang, street rats, literal. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. So make sure you become a patron, patreon.com/Bituation Room. Any amount, $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7. I could keep going. But if you give $20 or more, or $10 or more a month, you get a special shout out from me in the form of a fart song, which is coming up. But I also want to say, you can tip this show, Venmo, TBR-Live, also on Cash App, TBR Live. But I implore you to become a patron. It seems weird, like, how do I do this? No, it's just a website. It's super easy, and we can keep in touch with one another. And you'll get all the early bonus content. So if it feels like you don't want another thing to do, I get it. But actually, once you get there, it's way easier, and it's easier for me to contact you. So stay tuned for that. Hey, if you don't have any money, pay me in a 5-star review on iTunes. And for now, I just want to thank all of the patrons who've been giving $10 or more with a fart song. It's called Farting Around. Kevin MacLeod, friend of the show. He doesn't even know it. Thank you, John B., Mary S., Lori L., Wayne S., Rodney F., Kayak Y., Tony G., DeWeer. And then on Twitch, Tier 1 repeat offenders, Willie Gus, T-Bren 2725, More Phelan, Moonlight Flowers, Daisy Dragon, The Neurostream, Rodney1234, John Mizet, Text to Trill, Anastasia Beaverhouse, and The Neurostream. Did I already say Neurostream? You get it twice. And then finally, Tier 3. I think this is the only member of Tier 3 that we have on Twitch. Thank you to C. Missile for being there, for getting access to the emotes. I hope you're watching right now. And without further ado, let's just launch into this thing, shall we? Let's bitch. Everybody, what are you bitching about? Tell me. I know we're supposed to be hashtag grateful because we're hashtag blessed, but I'm hashtag pissed right now because I want the vaccine as much as anyone else. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't wait to get double stung, you know what I mean? By the J&J or the Pfizer or the, what is the other one? The Moderna. I want the Moderna just because it sounds like it's a vaccine in like a tall turtleneck shirt. The Moderna, you know? But I'm bitching about the fact that the United States and many of the first world countries that have gotten more access to this vaccine are not supporting the removal of patent laws on these vaccines so that global South countries, those who've been woefully behind the rest of other countries in terms of access to the vaccine, can actually produce this with their own scientists and doctors and biochemists and whomever the else, I don't know, whoever else goes into making, the fairies that go into making a vaccine. We are preventing them from getting them because, of course, Pfizer and Moderna and J&J have the patent rights, and they're not giving them up because that's not how big pharma works, and we knew this was going to happen. But just so you know, 10 countries have administered more than 75% of the vaccine as of now. At least 130 countries haven't received a single dose of COVID-19 vaccine, according to the UN Secretary General. So and I just want to put in perspective. Look, I love that Biden says we're all going to be vaccinated by May. And any adult who wants one will be able to get vaccinated. We'll gather on July 4th and celebrate how the rest of the world is still dying. But let me just say that as a country with the most resources and yet who failed so fucking miserably at containing the virus, you think we should just, on the moral plane of, justice, should we be first in line? Should we be first? The country that doesn't have contact tracing, that doesn't have any kind of actual necessary travel bans, the country that was, going out and celebrating Memorial Day and was saying the virus would disappear. Do we deserve it? I'm going to say no. And so right now, 100 countries are demanding that the World Trade Organization, which is sort of the arbiter of global neoliberal economics, race to the bottom, put a bunch of Hanes underwear factories in your country and destroy your social safety net. That World Trade Organization is being lobbied by 100 countries to drop the patents on these drugs, to have patent law not apply to these drugs so that countries can actually have access to them. And because it's the World Trade Organization, my guess is they're just going to say, sorry, poors, we'll make money off of you later. But no, trickle down economics. The World Health Organization is for dropping this patent. This is from the World Health Organization. This is apparently between all G7 nations, we have secured enough vaccines for each of our citizens to be vaccinated 3 times over. 3 times over. Look, I don't know what that would do to you, but I definitely don't need 3 vaccines. The Biden administration has not also budged on this issue. They've been lobbied by a bunch of organizations, endorse this waiver of the patent. But of course, this was all part of it, right? It was when we gave billions of dollars to these companies to help them develop the vaccine, I'm sure that part of it was in fine print, and you won't say shit when we're trying to sell it to the highest bidder, or when we want people to buy medicine through us or buy the vaccine through us, right? Yeah. So that's cool. And it's also cool that other countries will continue to have COVID farther into the future than we will, which, will do wonders to the xenophobia rampant in this country. I'm wearing a shirt that says hate is a virus by an organization that's working against anti-Asian racism. So I don't think that xenophobia is going anywhere soon, especially if we are one of the only countries that has special access to this virus. Okay, I'm fucking done. I'm done, y'all. Is this a comedy show? Hell yeah. I'm sorry. I am sorry. That's why I'm very excited to bring in our first guest. He was the host and creator of Comedy Central's President's Show and the only Trump impression that this show recognizes. Okay? The only one. There's only one. And he is currently, you can see him as the human neighbor Sean on the upcoming season of What We Do in the Shadows. Please welcome Anthony Atamanuik.
Hello. Hello, everybody. So this all falls on me now to try to be funny?
Yes, exactly. Lift it up.
No, I can't. I can't do it. No, everything you just said was so right. I mean, it always, in thinking about the layers of even how we approach issues in this country about whether it's equality, economic inequality, things of that nature, it's interesting that we become so narrow in scope. We sort of forget the rest of the world. Yeah. We really, somehow we want to fix our own house, but we're all doing it on devices that were made by, slave labor, in South Asia and from strip mining in Central America and Central Africa. That's the irony of it to me. So it feels like we need to do a massive overhaul. And one of the ways we could start, I'm still shocked that I'm not shocked that Biden didn't do this, but I'm shocked that there wasn't just on day one where national, like whatever CVS and Walgreens and whatever their sort of prescription networks that they have, because anyone knows in New York that if you hung around a Rite Aid, you could grab a vaccine at the end of the night and someone didn't show up for their appointment.
Right.
But also they have it already built into their pharmacy system to give you the second appointment and all that. Whereas the state's version of it, it's like, well, just keep trying the website. It's amazing that the federal government just go, we're seizing this. And until this is over, we're seizing this the same way that we should have just nationalized the banks in 2008. It's amazing to me that those moves aren't made because there's nothing anyone can do about it. And the whole threat that multinationals are going to walk away from their big, like if they're heroin dealers, they're really going to walk away from their biggest junkie. They're not. So it's such a fiction that rollout, as happy as I am with the things that he said, we still live in the Trump's administration's let the states figure it out on their own attitude. Yeah. Essentially, we have a band-aid of federal. There's a band-aid of sort of federal rollout, but it's still left to the states. And we have to make a decision, I guess. I think it's like we have to make a decision of what antiquated thinking around states' rights, whatever you want to call it, are we going to dispense with? Why do we have the idea that we have different educational standards per state? The root things that basically make a society is how you teach, is our children learning? Yeah,
like just like sex ed. Like every time I learn about like what sex ed was like in other states, I'm like, what the fuck? You learn what about the female reproductive system? Yeah, just fifth grade, girls have these parts, boys have these parts. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild, and it leads to so many problems, right? Especially really sex education alone leads to so many problems and suicides and deaths and bad sex. I'm bringing the fun, right?
I feel like just bad sex. Like in the year 2021, you should not only have good sex education, but also teach good sex. Anyway, Anthony Atamanuik, I'm so happy to have you. We're going to talk a little bit about the vaccine and who's trying to take credit for it. And who is not.
Skip ahead, yeah.
But what are you bitching about esta noche? What's going on?
There's this thing that sort of came to me while you were doing the opening, which is it's not connected to what you said, but I think the thing I'm bitching about most this week really is there's two ideas. But I'm going to pick this one, which is mainstream. The continuation of the mainstream media class's obsession on not only continuing to bring Trump up in every conversation, but also the narrow focus, which is now defined political and really news coverage in this country that, again, is exclusionary of the rest of the world. And, Peter Baker wrote, a tweet, at this point in office, Trump has given 5 news conferences, Obama's given 2, Bush 3, Clinton 5, Biden's given 0. So, of course, there is a real story here about communication by a president and sort of, what the reason is, and there's interpretations you can make about why they would choose to hedge the press conference and so on. But AP also did a piece, the other day about Biden flying home to Delaware and linking it to travel restrictions. And to me, what is blowing my mind is you now see naked participation in and a sort of Stockholm syndrome that's happened where they've abandoned, there used to be this illusion of caring a bit about international news, caring about a variety of topics that were covered, even with all the sensationalism of whatever the political machinations are. But you would think that Trump was the only president we ever had. You would think that he was the only president we ever had. And in addition to that, this sort of, what's the news value in that information? And who sits there at the AP and disingenuously says that somehow a president using Air Force One has anything to do with travel restrictions, anything to do with the optics of that at all? Everyone knows the president has a plane, and everybody knows the president has money, and it's not a shocker that he would do that or use Marine One. But this is not, and this is the problem, is this is the type of trap that's created where then it backs you into the corner of defending Biden, or, I guess, or being like, well,
don't make us do that.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not what it's about. But what it is about is, how is it that Myanmar is going through its second or third week of massive protest? You have environmental, you have environmental topics coming up, and seagrass is disappearing in large swaths of the Pacific. There are, sorry.
No, I was going to say, there was like some report this week that was out about the coverage of climate was like 0.4% of all news coverage in all mainstream outlets. Yes, there's a Trump industrial complex that, Anthony, you benefited from.
I did.
So how dare you?
I'm a war profiteer. I did benefit from it. But I always had a recipe, which was we had to give back more than we took. Not monetarily, of course. I kept all that. But in terms of our coverage, and I think we, as the show, and at least the book, I think maintained that integrity. I just am really, I'm not surprised, but I'm disillusioned at the idea that that there's no desire to return to, at least at a minimum, like I said, giving lip service to subject matters. That's completely abandoned. And a press that sat there and cowered at every conference for 4 years suddenly has the stones to do what? To continue to bring Trump up because they're desperate. They don't know. They want it. Listen, one thing that I will say is true is they want and still want this cataclysm. Part of what for-profit news does is it sweats cataclysm. It wants roving bands of people killing people in the street. It wants the Capitol to be taken. It wishes.
Yeah, January 6th, they were like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Chuck Todd there's a reason the news desk kept banging up and down like this during the whole.
Oh, God. All right. Well, look, we are not one of those outlets that covers Trump. We've moved on, and there's a lot of other news to get to. So this is the week where. This was the week where former President Donald Trump made.
Wait a minute.
I'm not mainstream media. I can do this. I'm not Trump obsessed, but I knew you were coming on, and this is vaccine related.
Okay.
Donald Trump made made his boundless fragility once again painfully obvious by issuing a statement on official Donald J. Trump letterhead, reminding Americans to give him credit for Biden's vaccine rollout. Writing, and my God, Anthony, can I implore you to read this?
For you, I'll do it. All right, here we go. From the office of Donald J. Trump, March 10th, 2021. This is a statement by Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. I hope everyone remembers when they're getting the COVID-19, often referred to as the China virus vaccine, that if I wasn't president, you wouldn't be getting that beautiful shot for 5 years at best, and probably wouldn't be getting it at all. I hope everyone remembers. Remember me. Hello. I'm down here in Mar-a-Lago. It was such a petty grandmother note. It was such a note from your grandma when like you didn't send her a thank you card for a gift. I mean, I don't want to upset, but that's my favorite thing is that he is just an old Jewish woman. That's all he is.
Oh, that is.
I'm Jewish.
That's a slight to all old Jewish women. But yeah, but one, right. There's always something wrong, and you're not giving him credit for something, and he knows better, even though he probably doesn't. But I definitely would trust a Jewish grandmother over.
Oh yeah,
Trump.
I mean, it's just petty. I mean, it's just.
Well, to me, it was yes, and I totally led you into a sand trap of your own making by making you do that again. Even though we know we shouldn't be so obsessed, but it was like, it's so funny that like, where do you put out statements these days? Like, he's banned from Twitter. He only has 280 characters worth of things to say because that was exactly 280 characters, which he managed to shoehorn in some racism. Just make sure everyone knows. He also coined China virus. Like, I'm surprised he didn't also say, which I coined.
Which I came up with. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing listen, you can cut off his Twitter and cut off all those things. And it's interesting. I've gone back and forth for a long time. I advocated he should be removed while president. He should be removed from Twitter because of the dangers of incitement and things he can do. So I did have that point of view. I also have this concern of not that this is a direct mapping, but you think of the beer hall riots and how Hitler gets jailed and he's sort of just off the map for a couple of years. And I get very concerned about what happens when this cultivates in the quiet like this, and whether it's him or whether what I think is worse is he at least had no agenda. He didn't have an agenda. There was no conviction with him. He just was saying and doing whatever. So this thing makes me more concerned about who comes up that has an agenda that also sounds like him. But more importantly, this connects to my bitching, which is that the idea that there's even a question about, again, this is not about Biden's handling of things as much as it is, there is no, warp speed was a totally useless, it was not even a program, it was lip service. There was no vaccine plan. The plan was to let the states deal with it. The man ignored the thing for a year, held multiple rallies, flew around. He has his followers and supporters. It's politically divisive to wear a mask or not. And they seized hold of real issues that people do struggle with. I don't want to stop seeing people's faces. I don't want to stay in my home for the real things that real people
need to work.
I need to work. I need to make money. And to take all of that and for the press to cover it as if he did they now have to lend legitimacy to his presidency or else their own necks are on the line. It's just absurdity. And the other absurdity is the fixation. In a way, this thing is going to get mitigated. People are going to get the vaccine. Eventually it will distribute around the world in a terrible way. There's the I call it the Howard Johnson's virus, the Johnson & Johnson virus, because it's only 64% effective. But like, it is really, of course he's going to get things out and people are going to lap it up. And it's almost going to make it actually more important. When he speaks, it will become more of an event because he is not diarrheaing all over Twitter all the time. But there's plenty of Glenn Greenwald's done a great job picking up where he left off.
Oh, yes. Hats off to all the fake leftists out there and grifters. My condolences if you still are on that train. Thanking Trump for getting the vaccine rollout started is like thanking the police for Black Lives Matter. It's like thanking Harvey Weinstein for Me Too, right? It's like, oh my God, like without me, you wouldn't have, like And I will say the only thing that Warp Speed apparently did, because like the media has also been like, well, actually Warp Speed. Okay, the CVS and Walgreens partnerships with nursing homes, apparently that happened. But like at every point in turn, Alex Azar, which was like the head of human health services, again, completely unqualified, was like, we'll have 100 million doses by the end of 2020. And it was 40 million doses. And then it was 20 million doses. And it just kept on like, they met no benchmark. Whereas Biden, has met all of the benchmarks and then some.
Yes. Yeah, but
anyway,
they learned that you can lie. You can lie about everything. You can lie about the war ending. You can lie. And what it's proven, and it's astonishing, it's proven that this whole thing is a fucking fiction. The whole setup, the country ran for 4 years without anyone running it, basically. And what you realize is the bureaucracy is actually the thing that drives the engine of the country and people's desire for consumption. And never underestimate people's desire to consume and to be left alone. Those are the two biggest things that people want to do. They want to watch something, eat something, be left alone, and have money in their pocket. That's what everyone wants. Nobody really wants anything else. Anything else is aspirational. And we have not gotten that yet. And here's the thing. You can lie for 4 fucking years, 10 years. And I wanted to say one other thing about you said about the partnership. And this happens on the left as well. Everyone is arguing within the world of Reagan. Everybody argues within Reagan. Everyone argues within Ronald Reagan's dynamic. Because think about GoFundMe's, all the things that we have now, or the ways in which people even shame, well, you have money and you should be putting it here. All of that, to me, is living in Reagan's economic shadow, which is that what we should be advocating is I don't have to advocate for someone who has $10 million to do the right thing. I shouldn't need to do that. What should happen is that government should be appropriately taxing people at different rates to create a pool of money so that people are supported. That's the whole point of government. The whole point of government is so I don't have to fucking think about it. And I'm still a good person because I paid my tax, gave some money, and that's it.
Exactly. I don't have to constantly. No, that's so true. I mean, it's in essence what I think kind of the worst parts of the real Twitter cancel culture are. It's like we're stepping in because there's no justice in the actual criminal justice system.
Right.
And like GoFundMe's are and like donating and lifting up the nonprofit industrial complex is also what happens when like our tax rate is totally out of whack and the social system's been completely fucking hollowed out by billionaires who run the government. It's like it actually could be way better than this, and it has nothing to do with socialism. Sadly, even though we want to get there, we got to go to 2 more stories, and we're going to bring in Mr. Bill McKibben, Professor Bill McKibben. But this was the week where Governor Andrew Cuomo says he won't resign despite the walls closing in on him. More than 50 New York State legislators, including New York State senators Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, and a number of New York Democratic congresspeople, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman, have also called for Cuomo's resignation, as now has Nancy Pelosi and even the New York Times editorial board.
Well, that is something.
Well, I don't see how he can get out of this.
How can he escape that? I met him in 2000 when he was going to primary Clinton for the Democratic senatorship. And he was on the corner. What an idiot. I mean, I met him in 2000 when I would never vote for this fucking guy in a million years. And, he people go, well, he's like Trump. And it's like, no. There are just people like this. And there's a lot of male personalities like this. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's worked in comedy knows that there are a lot. I mean, Jimmy Dore, look at that. That's another fucking waste of space. And that's another person who is a guy who thinks that if he screams loud enough and yells loud enough, that then you'll listen. And and I'm Italian, so I know this. Listen, the thing is that everyone goes, well, maybe it was this and he was single. There's a huge difference between wanting to date people and using your position of power to manipulate somebody or put pressure on them or hire them for a job. It is a no-brainer. But what blows my mind is that calls for impeachment come from that, but not from letting 50,000 old people die. It's like crazy to me that we have so jumped the shark that actual actionable things that are done in the tangible world matter less than something that we know we can nail the person. And I'm not denigrating what happened. I'm just saying it is pretty amazing that that's where we're at.
They're connected.
You know?
I think they are connected. I don't think though, and I do think this is a moment where his star was rising and it fell real quick. Woo-wee.
Yeah.
Like this fall makes
blanket.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like his whole rise and fall makes Kanye just look wholesome. Like it is so fast. And I think, yes, there are now 7 accusers who have come out and spoke out publicly about Cuomo either actually harassing them or actually assaulting them. And this is what Cuomo had to say in response this week to calls for him to resign.
People know the difference between playing politics, bowing to cancel culture, and the truth. Let the review proceed. I'm not going to resign. I was not elected by the politicians. I was elected by the people. Part of this is that I am not part of the political club. And you know what? I'm proud of it.
He's not part of the political club. His father was governor of New York.
He's part of the dynasty. Okay, there's a difference.
It's like, yeah, well, he's not even part of the Good Dynasty, which was on Friday nights at 9 p.m.
But he said cancel culture, like everyone drink no matter where you are.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing.
There it is. Cancel culture.
Yeah. Something that one doesn't exist. And I mean, it's just, but he knows, you've seen this happen to comics, and now he's going to flirt with this like libertarian streak, machismo, this to me,
like,
it connects into this larger movement that's happening in the country, which Bannon coined 4 years ago. We used in our show, which is the Western chauvinism, right? That should be what people should be paying attention to, because if anyone remembers the QAnon swearing in that happened on Twitter over the summer, every person, every race, every orientation, every gender was doing that swear in. And even though it is important,
this was the Michael Flynn weird
presidential. And the reason I'm linking these two is just what he said is such a dog whistle to the deeper, obviously it's white supremacy. It's not about denying those things, but it's about understanding that this is a tiramisu. This is a quintuple layer cake. It is not just one thing. And one thing that is unmitigatedly a problem and is the sense of chauvinistic male dismissal of things that are of high order when it relates to them. And you could see this again, just to cite Jimmy Dore and Greenwald snickering about AOC being threatened at the Capitol and cackling about it, right? And shit talking it. And it's amazing to me because anyone who's ever been in the
same vein.
It's in the same vein, and he's living in that same place. He should resign, one, because I think he's going to try to run for a 4th term, which is
I was going to ask you.
nuts.
Yeah.
He's going to run for a 4th term, and he thinks he can beat it. And you want to know any bit of evidence that's the biggest bit of evidence against him is the behavior he's displaying right now.
Yes.
The behavior he's displaying is of a person who thinks they can punch through it and knows what they did.
Well, and I think in that way he is Trumpian, and he is pulling from a right-wing toolbox, which is never admit that you did it. And I will say, like, I'm of two minds of it, because with this bullshit cancel culture claim, I feel like we're constantly, you can't just say you can't believe women. You can't actually believe women who've gone on record, who have risked everything to talk about what happened, right? That's not enough. You have to have like an actual investigation. Okay, that's fine. There's an investigation. The Attorney General of New York has appointed 2 attorneys, independent investigators. That is good. Like, right. I actually think that that's the kind of thing we should do, because otherwise most people are like, okay, 7, yeah, motherfucker needs to resign. But then there are people who are like he's saying, let's finish the investigation. And in some ways, I'm like, yes, let's finish the investigation. The problem is, when it comes to a sexual assault or harassment investigation, it is forever his word versus hers. Of course. It is forever. And he's already said multiple times, none of this happened. So what? Where do you go from there? And what is the investigation? Where does that end, right? So it always just becomes weaponized against these victims.
Well, this was Hammurabi's problem, which is why he wrote all those laws, which is that, there is always going to be the sustaining problem of certain crimes of essentially vagary, where you don't have, let's say, and I'm only using this, that if you have a physical rape where there's evidence and a rape kit and all that, then it enters into and then we can get into all the problems of the justice system and policing and how they handle it.
Then maybe it'll get tested one day in like 20 years.
In 20 years. So yeah, I mean, I'm not walking down the road of going like the system's already there. It's not that, but we have two levels of problem, right? And the one, and they are different situations. Can he say, as anyone could say, let the investigation play out and da 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 da? Of course you can. Of course he could say that, and of course it's true. The investigation play out under the auspices of that and how they look at it. But the other question is one of political and is one of social, and we don't have and cannot have essentially social courts because there's no determinative way. How can you create a determination?
Right.
That's sort of subjective.
Yes.
So that's a problem that I don't think will ever go away unless we restructure how we educate people. And like we talked about sex education, there's a lot of things to deal with violence and sex and machismo and all that bullshit.
Yes. Agreed.
That's my
agreed.
Thing.
And elect more women to office.
Yes.
And the other thing I'll say is I think what I mean to say when I say maybe just let the investigation play out before he resigns is because he becomes once again a fucking martyr, in the imagined cancel culture world of embattled men who clearly are guilty, but then become like another soldier in some bullshit war. And so you're totally right that it's nothing. He should resign over the nursing home scandal. He put sick people back into the nursing homes when he removed them from the hospitals after defunding hospitals for so long. Right. So anyway, but
I agree. Well, I totally agree with you. And I want to move. I know you want to move on. It's just that this issue also it has to do with, like you said, putting women in more positions. And the morning show, some people didn't like it or whatever. I really enjoyed the morning show because
it's a good show.
It took you on such a ride of the thing you're describing, the point where they even take you on this sort of righteous moment where you go, okay, so maybe his character's a little more moral than I thought. And then you're like, oh, he's not. And you realize the levels of pretending and posturing. It's very tricky and dark. And I think one of the big things is to stop. We have fallen in love in our culture, and we depict this in our stories of the brutal, damaged man who's pretty shitty, and but ultimately you love him. That's a problem when that's the thing that you sell people all the time.
Totally.
And
he's pretty shitty, but
from.
not that shitty. We're Cuomo sexuals. Oh my God. The poor white feminists that have to issue apologies right now. Moving on to our final and most important story, Bituation Room. I hope you know that we only cover the hardest hitting and most deeply sort of revolutionary adjacent stories here. Adjacent? This was the week where a member of the first family was involved in another incident that really took the pressure off of Hunter. Let me just put it that way. This is what happened.
And on Monday, the first family's younger dog, Major, was surprised by an unfamiliar person and reacted in a way that resulted in a minor injury to the individual, which was handled by the White House medical unit with no further treatment needed.
Wow.
The Biden's younger dog, Major Biden, who had been called out by right-wing media for being, quote unquote,
gross.
A junkyard dog. Gross. Yes, gross. Ew.
It's a gross dog. It's a dirty looking dog.
Ew, what a dirty dog. Major bit someone in what appears to be the Secret Service. And let me just say, good instincts, bro. Good fucking instincts. Okay. Because he's getting to know a new place, blah, blah, blah. It was a warning shot. That bite, he knows. Major was watching the coverage of January 6th. He knows the call is coming from inside the house.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And if there's one person who can actually hear dog whistles, it's Major Biden. It's a dog. He was just doing his duty. Of course, they're back in Delaware now on a supposedly it was a pre-planned trip for when Jill was away. Other people are saying
they say that shit. I don't know why they don't just go. We had to take the. This is where I'm always like, why? Why don't you just go? Yeah, the dog it bit someone, so we had to put it somewhere else because we don't want to put it down. So like that. I mean, that's the and I agree with you, which is what's up with that agent? Dogs just don't do that shit. Dogs don't do that. And dogs read people. They know their energy. And listen, I'll say this. I'm a softie in the sense that I have less of a problem with Joe Biden, I think, than a lot of my compatriots. One, because I just accept who he is and I don't expect him to deliver things. I just know he's not going to deliver on certain things. Right. And so it's not like, oh, that's wonderful, but it's like, all right. At the same time, I don't see him as, I think sometimes he's depicted as like, as terrible or worse or whatever. But like the dog thing, I mean, I would really check that agent out. I personally would say that would be the first thing I would do is that Joe should be like, Jill, we got to check it out. Like, we got to find out about that guy. But it does lend itself to the deeper thing, which is that, is there this call come from inside the house? Is there actually a threat? I think it's probably a little bit more of paranoia and sympathetic thinking. I don't think we are watching 24. I don't think that there's some secret sleeper January 6th agent in the Secret Service. I don't think that's happened.
Can you be so sure? They weren't great under Obama. Anyway,
that's true. That is true.
All to say, the dog will not be euthanized, and I actually do believe the story that they were originally going to go home to Delaware because Jill was away, and Jill's the one kind of training them. But there's more important questions related to animals in the White House that I'm so glad an intrepid reporter asked Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
We heard all about dogs. We were promised a White House cat. What happened to that?
Where is the cat? Today's a good day for the cat. I don't have any update on the cat. We know the cat will break the internet, but I don't have any update on its status. Okay,
Jesus Christ almighty.
Yo, the cat's ass is gonna be thick. That's gonna be a thick cat.
What if
break the internet like Kim Kardashian?
What if they did get a cat with like a human ass? Do you think that would be weird? Do you think they'd be like, do you think that would be a week of coverage? They'd be like, the cat has a human ass and it has no hair on it.
I don't see it. Oh, wow.
Jen Psaki, I mean, she really does like, I have two minds. I have the cynical mind, but then I have the mind that sort of appreciates the bullshit. And I'm like, she's a pretty good bullshitter, man. She does a good job of swatting away that BS and holding the line and delivering her own BS, which, by the way, for all the viewers to know, that's the job of the press secretary. The job of the press secretary is not to just overtly be truthful with the press. So if you believe that, you're naive. That the job is for them. Or
if you like her, you're supposed to not like her. I remember when she came back, I was like, why do I hate her? And I was like, oh, because she's a press secretary. Right. And they're all bad. Even when they do their job well, they're bad. But let's be real. I mean, compared to Kayleigh McEnany, the North Korean propagandist of the Trump administration, like, wiping the floor.
She did a good job for them, though. She did do a good job being a propagandist. True. You got to give her. She's a dipshit. I mean, listen, when you look back at that, and you realize, and this is not economic, this is about people, trash. When you realize how much trash was in that White House and that COVID event when then they all got COVID, you're just like, what a dirty bunch of people. And anyone who's been a waiter knows trash rich people. You've done with trash rich people, and they don't tip. They don't tip. It's so amazing to me how so many of them just that should be what we should be most offended about. Is absolutely just the garbage, crass classnesses. Give me people who didn't use Jeffrey Epstein, but used someone higher up in the pyramid we don't even know about.
I want the queen. I want the queen's private plane.
Yeah.
A couple of comments on Twitch. Thank you so much, Rizky Biz. I'm still bitching about the governor of my state, Greg Abbott, ending the mask mandate this close to the vaccine being readily available. And I'm bitching about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation strong-arming Oxford into giving AstraZeneca exclusive patent rights to the vaccine that Oxford developed. Damn.
Yeah.
Levine W on Twitch, trickle-down economics is just capitalist countries stealing from the subjected ones, then peeing all over them. That is
what trickle-down economics is.
Yes. On Cuomo, Ulysses Hernandez on YouTube, Cuomo's running out of excuses for his incompetence, and it would be best if he could show some humility and step down. Humility. Don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
Thunderous Dragon on Twitch, politicians, when they get blamed, it's cancel culture. Absolutely. And on Major the Dog, Neon Neil 201 says, I trust Major Biden more than the entire Trump family. 100%.
Wow.
And thank you all still for being here. Remember, we've got a Patreon, patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Become a member today, and you get like early access to all the good stuff. And there's a bonus episode on Friday all about New York. We're going to talk about it. I won't sing Alicia Keys. I'll probably sing Alicia Keys. And without further ado, what are the prospects for a Green New Deal under a brand new Biden administration? What is the future of the fight for real climate real stopping climate change, real climate change?
Yes. Yeah.
This is the Sidge. And joining us, he's a contributing writer to The New Yorker, a founder of the grassroots climate campaign 350.org. He was the Schumann Distinguished Professor in Residence at Middlebury College in Vermont. He was a 2014 recipient of the Right Livelihood Prize, sometimes called the Alternative Nobel, and the Gandhi Peace Award. He's written over a dozen books about the environment, including his first, The End of Nature, published 30 years ago. Wow. I feel like it's already ended. And his most recent Falter, Has the Human Game Begun to Play Itself Out? Please welcome Bill McKibben.
Very good to be with you both. Hello, hello.
Oh my gosh, so good to have you here, Bill. Thanks for hanging on in the green room, eating all the snacks. I hope you've enjoyed the display of. I don't have any snacks.
Environmentally friendly.
Yeah,
it's all organic. Yeah,
yeah. Ethically harvested cashew.
Yeah.
Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's late in the evening here in Vermont, so it's fun to be ending the weekend with you guys.
I hope you don't have anything too early in the morning, and I'm so thankful that you can join us. It's really, really awesome to talk to you. A longtime admirer, of course. Lots of respect. So I just want to talk just broadly, right? About, we're in the middle of this pandemic or towards the end of it. Got a new president. There's already been some climate victories, right? The Keystone XL pipeline was canceled under President Biden, which is a huge victory for organizers like yourself and 350.org. There is a $2 trillion climate plan in the works that has been proposed and has been informed by a lot of the work that you and others like the Sunrise Movement have done. What are your thoughts now, or sort of almost 100 days into this? Somewhere, don't quote me on, you know what I mean, days into this. What are your thoughts on Biden's climate plan, and sort of what surprised you about it? And then what are your no, we can do better than that?
Well, first thing to be said is obviously night and day. We went from a guy who was insisting that climate change was a hoax manufactured by the Chinese to the administration that's by far the most concerned with climate of any in the 30-year history of this crisis. The people that they've appointed are remarkable, and there are a lot of them. I mean, we've never had anybody in charge of climate policy before. Now we have a global climate czar. That's John Kerry, who used to be Secretary of State. So that sends a pretty powerful message to the rest of the world about the importance with which Biden views this issue. And we have a domestic climate czar, Gina McCarthy, who used to be head of the EPA, and she's remarkable. I know both of them. They're both tough and smart and very, very committed. And they seem to be serious about this whole of government effort. So we're watching people like Pete Buttigieg go to transportation and decide that it's going to be a climate focus there. We're going to do a lot of electric cars and a lot of trains and a lot of bike paths and a lot of other stuff that we need. We're watching the same kind of thing across the administration. Okay, that's the very good news. And the early things that they've done are important. I mean, look, I've been to jail a number of times trying to stop the Keystone Pipeline. To have it put to bed is really important and a huge signal too that we're not going to go in that direction anymore. There are limits to what they can do working just through the executive office. To get the really big stuff done, they're going to need to get Congress on board. And obviously, that's going to be tough. We got the COVID relief bill through by the literal skin of one's teeth. That was, you know, a 50-50 tie with Kamala Harris coming in to cast the deciding vote.
Right.
It's going to be hard to, I mean, even if somehow we get past the filibuster, it's going to be hard to get 50 votes for the huge $2, $3, $4 trillion green infrastructure plan that they've talked about. But maybe not impossible. Joe Manchin, who's, you know, kind of the prime minister of America now, said last week on the Sunday show, said, you know what, I'm happy to spend $3 or $4 trillion on infrastructure, but only if we raise the money for it by taxing rich people. Well, I mean, I can live with that. That's you know, that's not so bad. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
they're doing great stuff, and one important moment to mark will happen, I think, tomorrow. It looks like Deb Haaland should be confirmed as Secretary of the Interior. She's wonderful and cares deeply about climate change. More to the point, she's the first Native American cabinet member in history.
Yeah. And
as Secretary of the Interior, she's going to be in charge of roughly 1/5 of the acreage that was stolen from her ancestors over the last few hundred years. So in just poetic justice terms, there's some good stuff underway too.
Absolutely. I mean, on it, not to fetishize, but if we just gave all of our public lands into Native American hands, which was once originally theirs, maybe our country wouldn't be so dug up and polluted and as it is now. I'm really curious. In terms of getting the political will, obviously, like you mentioned, we have to overturn the filibuster. But speaking of Manchin and his coal-rich West Virginian state, right, and the ways that sort of the blue-collar worker, the coal miner has been, you know, trotted out and almost made like a Disney character of a martyr standing in the way against, you know, the socialist Green New Deal policies of Biden, which it's not a Green New Deal, but, you know, people will call it that anyway. It is a $2 trillion plan. How do we change the narrative? I mean, as someone, for me, who's been working in media, I'm fascinated by how do we change that narrative?
So the first thing is, look, people who, because of where they live and where they grew up, ended up doing perfectly respectable jobs that we depended on for a long time, deserve to be treated fairly in this transition. And it's why every climate bill and everything else that the Democrats have put forward for a long time has called for a just transition and a lot of money to be spent on retraining and so on and so forth. It's never been in the interest of Republicans to allow any of that, much more in their interest to kind of hold fossil fuel workers as a kind of hostage to trot out for just the reasons you described. So it's possible that Manchin may be in a position to play a very interesting role, to be the kind of, you know, the kind of facilitator of a just transition. And frankly, it's not that hard to imagine. Not thanks to environmentalists, but thanks to the greed and automation of the coal companies, there's almost no coal miners left. I mean, literally, there are more people in this country who work at Arby's roast beef sandwich shops than mine coal, okay? So the prospect of essentially buying them out is not hard to imagine, you know? if you're too old to retrain, or you can't move because have the family members who depend on you or something, well, okay, you've spent your life doing a hard, difficult thing. Here's a good pension. Thank you very much. In other parts of the country, the good news is that it turns out that the skill set for working in, say, the oil patch translates really easily to doing work in renewable energy. I just did a piece for the New Yorker about North Dakota, where they've been busily retraining people who've been working on frac rigs to be wind turbine technicians. Largely the same job. You're taking care of a big piece of machinery. In this case, you have to train someone to climb, 400 feet into the sky. On the other hand, it's not as dangerous, anywhere near as dangerous as working in the oil field. And it doesn't come with the boom bust economics that always plague the fossil fuel industry. Our demand for electricity is stable and predictable. And so these are lifetime jobs. So, this transition is possible to imagine. And it's clearly one of the things that the Biden team is working hard on. And clearly they're gaining, or should be gaining, some trust from the labor movement. Biden's, one of the most remarkable things that Biden has done is that video he cut about the union election going on in Alabama for Amazon workers. It's at least since Harry Truman that we've had presidents willing to stand up for labor unions like that. So hopefully they'll be willing to cut him some slack when he has to deal with climate change. One way to think about this is that, of course, it would be much easier to have a long, slow, gradual transition here. Everything works better when you can move slowly. Human institutions just, it's cheaper, it's less traumatic to do everything slowly. Our problem with climate change is it's different from other political issues that we wander into. It comes with a time limit, which isn't true about other things. Look, we've been fighting about healthcare in this country for as long as I've been conscious, which is a lot longer than you guys have. And the it's horrible that we don't have a good healthcare system. I'm a Bernie guy, a Vermonter, so it's been something I've worked on for a long time. But when we finally get around to doing it, finally get around to joining every other industrialized nation in the world and providing healthcare for people, the fact that we screwed around for 4 decades isn't going to make it harder to do it.
Right.
Climate change isn't like that. Once you've melted the Arctic, there's no plan for refreezing it, And so the scientists have
startups around the world are trying, though, to really trying to get that seed money.
The scientists have said you got 10 years. Partly that's because, thanks to the oil industry and their campaign of denial, we wasted the last 30 years. So we've got to cram a lot of work into a short period of time. And it's going to mean moving much faster than our political system or economic system really wants to move.
Yeah, I just wanted to name some of the things. So in Biden's plan, he's trying to get to 100% clean electricity, by 2035, get to net zero emissions economy-wide by 2050. Bill McKibben, you have been, I think, a really important voice when it comes to the fight. And you've always talked about, or at least the thing that has stuck with me, is when you talk about really taking on fossil fuel companies as adversaries, as being enemies of life, as being enemies of people, do you feel like they're kind of giving up the fight because they realize that they're losing, just like sort of the cigarette companies lost the moral, and the health argument, that they're losing the argument? And do you feel like we can sort of like knock them out, or they still have more fight in them and we have to kind of like handhold them and sort of, yay, we're in a partnership, we actually love you?
Right question. And right historical analogy, because they hired all the guys from the cigarette industry 25 years ago to run their propaganda campaign. So look, the years of them being able to fund climate denial are gone. Climate denial in a kind of overt way got on the plane with Trump to Florida, and it's not coming back, But what they can do and are doing is trying to delay. They know that 50 years from now, we're going to run the planet on sun and wind because it's free. It's already the cheapest way to generate power in the world. And so they're not stupid. They understand that. Their goal now is simply to keep their business model in operation for another 2 decades, 3 decades. The trouble is, if they do, they'll break the planet. And so we have to keep standing up to them in a big way. That's why things like this fossil fuel divestment movement that Naomi Klein and I launched about a decade ago and has now become, by some measures, the largest anti-corporate campaign in history. We're at about $15 trillion in endowments and portfolios that have divested from fossil fuel, including, happily, the University of California system, which was one of the biggest and most important. That's why that's so important. We have to keep trying to weaken the political power of these guys, the financial and political power in every way we can, because that's the only thing that levels the playing field. That's why we've spent the last 10 years building out these climate movements around the world. 350 was a kind of early iteration, but Extinction Rebellion, Fridays for the Future, Sunrise Movement, on and on and on.
When you manufactured Greta Thunberg, right? When you put her together from all the angriest parts of every climate movement and just created this child.
Greta is great. And the best thing, I mean, I love her and I love working with her. And I think she'd be the first to say the best thing is that there are 10,000 Greta Thunbergs. There are so many great young people and they have 10 million followers. And that's good because that's the counterbalance that we need to the incredible weight of the fossil fuel industry. These guys have so much money that they're able, and they've been gaming the political system for so long that they're really good at it. Who are the Koch brothers? They are the biggest oil and gas barons in the United States. They made enough money that they were able to purchase themselves a political party. That's hard to beat. That's why we've been unable to do anything about climate change. And that's why it's such an interesting moment right now, watching Biden respond to the fact that the polling makes clear that people are really ready and even desperate for action on climate change. You're in California, Francesca. There's now a month or two of the year when everybody's looking over their shoulder to see what's caught on fire, where the governor's telling you to go inside and tape the windows shut so the particulates don't destroy your lungs.
We just have to live on the moon for a couple of months out of the year. That's in California, which was always our image of the most, the kind of idyllic existence on planet Earth, the place where you went to chill if you got really lucky, and now the place where you can run for re-election at 87 with dementia, California is so full of shit right now, Bill. I'm so mad at our state. Like, all of our state assembly is bought by the oil and gas industry too. They've all skipped town during COVID to go to Maui or wherever the fuck.
It is really sad to watch. To see that California won't grapple. California's doing a lot of good things, it must be said. Its work around cars and renewable energy is great. And credit to Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom and people for all that work. The fact that California can't bring itself to stop giving permits for people to drill for oil in the middle of Los Angeles, or in Kern County, in the poorest parts of the state, that's just crazy. California's got money enough that it no longer needs the oil industry, which is a tiny pimple on its, on the rear end of its economy.
Yeah, we've got all this alfalfa. We ship it over to China. Lots of money.
You've got all that silicon. That's where you're really,
exactly.
That's where the money is.
Have you heard about Facebook? Yeah, we get all that money. I'm sorry.
That's really helping.
I do think it's really interesting and important that you said in terms of the way that if you scratch the surface of any right-wing outlet there, it just bleeds oil. I mean, that's where you strike oil, right? Like that Breitbart was founded by Robert Mercer, supported by Robert Mercer and Rebecca Mercer, his, vampiric daughter. And they've, like funneled so much money into overinflating the xenophobia to distract from climate, the, sexism to distract from climate, and then you've got the dark money groups, obviously Koch brothers included, and the Mercers included, who, as Jane Mayer documented, it is their system. We're just living in a creation that they made, that these fossil fuel companies made, and these fossil fuel barons made. And so to me, it's also about, anyway,
one of the really good things about moving to renewable energy is not only is it cleaner, but if we do it right, it'll help distribute power a little bit again. I mean, one of the reasons that the world is unequal as it is that one of our most important commodities, energy, is under the control of a tiny percentage of people who just happen to live atop the places where we have deposits of coal and gas and oil. That's why people pay attention to the Koch brothers. That's why people pay attention to the king of Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's not like he has good ideas about the world. He, beheads people, but he's got a lot of oil, so everybody sucks up to him. Everybody's got sun and wind, and so there'll be at least a certain amount of sharing of power as it begins to take over our energy system. We could really work to make that happen by emulating what the Scandinavians and the Germans have done in terms of a lot of community ownership of, look, it does seem odd that anyone should really get to own the sun and the wind that fall on us. It does seem like a kind of thing that at the very least we should be reaping some of the benefits from.
It feels like it's a very like Star Wars moment where the doors are closing, and I have a very big sinking feeling that we're going to be left on the wrong side of the doors once our window
doors
once it all, you know what I mean? Because like we're almost there, but like you said, like we can't afford 10 more years, 20 more years of oil and gas drilling. We just don't have that.
I mean, that's the real urgency of the moment. The engineers did their job over the last decade. They dropped the price of solar power and wind power by 90%. That changed everything. Every spreadsheet looks entirely different than it did a decade ago. And it means that if we wanted to make really serious change fast, we could around the world. We could make this the prime chore for the human and the prime adventure in a lot of ways for human societies over the next decade. If we don't do it, it's not like we're going to stop climate change. We're already in trouble and it's going to get worse. But we're at a point where we may still have enough leverage to keep it from reaching a temperature where it cuts civilization off at the knees. That's what the next decade is about. And that's what we've got to work so hard for.
Can I ask a question?
No. Bill, why?
I just want to, the mitigating circumstances of the next decade are also that more viruses are going to come out of various parts of the world because of climate change. It's a direct relationship that these pandemics are often sometimes because of sub-zero freezes, defrosting, and what comes out of there.
The permafrost.
So my question is as it's moving along and there's going to be these additional things of climate migration, climate wars, water wars, all the other things that are going to exist around the next 2 decades. I always wonder 2 things. Is there a silver bullet technology or something that people are working on, and I don't like 0 point energy or something of that nature, that if they made it, or I guess carbon capture, is there a version where someone discovers something and it shifts the balance? Is there anything on the horizon like that, or is that like fantasy thinking?
White male.
Dude, they already discovered it. I mean, look, a solar panel, you can point a sheet of glass at the sun and out the back comes electricity. Right. I mean, that's Hogwarts scale magic, man. I mean, what else do you want? I mean, it's like it's like that joke about the guy who's, stranded on top of the house as the floodwaters rise, and he tells, he's praying to God to help him, and a guy comes by in a canoe, and he says, "No, I'm God's going to rescue me." And a guy comes by in a helicopter, and "Oh, God's going to rescue me." And the guy drowns, and he gets up to heaven and says to God, "Why didn't you rescue me?" And God's like, "I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What the hell did you want?" I mean, solar power
God
and
is
wind
gonna
power,
innovate
that's
a
pretty
way.
good,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're just like, in that analogy, I just love like the guy on the top who's like, God's going to innovate a way to like disrupt the rescue industrial complex system. And the canoes are no longer going to be relevant. I was like, fool, get on the fucking boat. Get in the boat. But I actually just want to ask you one last thing, and it's sort of political, which is what Biden's doing, $2 trillion. Is it enough? And is it the beginnings of a Green New Deal without the name of it because he's sort of afraid of that title?
Look, so the first thing is nothing's enough. I mean, this is the biggest crisis by far that humans have ever dealt with, and we're a mile behind. And so, if someone said we're going to spend $20 trillion, say, okay, that's good, and it's still just a beginning. But you got to start someplace, and Biden's starting hard. And it's it takes some of the important parts of the Green New Deal, this concentration on justice, because a lot of the money this is going to be aimed at the communities that have paid the highest price. And the communities that have done the least to cause the problem. That's good. Right. And that's very much in the spirit of the Green New Deal. And it's, it takes seriously these questions around labor and just transition that we've talked about. That's a big part of the Green New Deal. And it's going to put up a hell of a lot of solar panels. So that's good stuff. Even some of the other parts, like this conservation corps, to get young people out building trails, working in, out in the outdoors, sort of like during the Depression. A way to think about all of this is the last huge crisis that America wandered into was in the 1930s and through the Depression. And so we had the New Deal to deal with it. Now we're in a crisis of similar size. And so the Green New Deal is a good, it's on the right scale.
Mm-hmm. I find it very cruel that we're experiencing the climate impacts of the industrial era now, when that was sort of like our heyday, to like help with the social safety net, industrialize in the factory and create the bombs for World War II and stop Nazism and fuck climate change, 40 years later, or whatever. I feel like it's a little bit of a joke. Anyway, that's just my little thing on that. Like, let's do a new Green Deal without all of the emissions. Because it's we can't afford it. Anywho, Bill McKibben, you're wonderful and give me hope. And I'm glad that you've co-signed on a lot of the people that Biden is tapped, because that gives me a little bit more. It makes me feel better, but obviously no one should rest on their laurels. Everyone get involved. I think this is really, really critical. I wanted to keep you on for one more segment. Bill and Anthony, would you guys stay?
Sure. Can I stay?
You may stay. All right. One more segment. Okay, so this is because the vaccine rollout is it's happening, it's underway, and I just want to know if you could inoculate the world. I'd like to inoculate the world, something like that. From a different virus or from a different ailment or from a different defect, what would it be? So this is Dream Vaccine. Okay, you have a magic wand. What would you make humans immune to?
Well, look, let me go first because then Anthony will have something really smart to say. I want to build though on something he said that I thought was really important earlier.
Yeah.
The best thing about the Biden relief plan in a certain way that passed last week is the sort of sense that the Reagan era is beginning to come to an end, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the that's the era that we've all lived our lives in the shadow of politically. And the basic idea of that era was that, government is the problem, not the solution. Free markets solve all problems. I mean, Reagan's famous laugh line in his speeches was always, the 9 scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Ha, ha, ha. It turns out the scariest words in the English language are, we've run out of ventilators, or the hillside behind your house just caught on fire, or whatever it is.
And there's no one here to help.
If you could figure out a vaccine that helped cure people of some of the kind of hyper individualism that we stumbled into in that Reagan era, and replaced it with a new ethic of some kind of human solidarity that we are going to desperately need. Let me give you a quick example.
Yeah.
We had the worst hurricane season we've ever had. The last 2 storms of the year, when we were deep into the Greek alphabet, so hurricanes Theta and Iota, didn't hit the U.S. They didn't hit the U.S. They smashed into Central America. Honduras incurred damage roughly equivalent to 40% of its GDP. The worst disaster we ever had in this country, Katrina, did damage equivalent to about 1% of our GDP. So nobody in Honduras did anything to cause the climate crisis. Nobody down there, it's not tracked out, it's not people driving SUVs back and forth. And now their lives have been destroyed by it. Yeah. And what do you know? Some of them are going to probably come knocking on our border, and we should bear that in mind. The UN estimates we could see 1 billion climate refugees in the course of this century. We're going to need some kind of ethic that allows us to get through this. And it won't get as bad as it has to get if we get that ethic sooner rather than later and begin trying to look out for each other, trying to look out for the future, and getting rid of this Reagan era idea that if we only just each try to get rich, everything will work out fine. Yeah. We've done that, and the temperature of the planet's gone up, 2 degrees,
well,
and the Arctic melted.
The problem is capitalism is such that we don't have the resources for everyone to live that kind of lifestyle. I lived in Argentina for many years, and they started doing a bunch of internal flights. Now, on the one hand, I'm like, that's wonderful that this global South country gets to do a bunch of internal flights, and you can traverse an incredibly large amount of land in a very little amount of time. It's also awful because we can't afford it. But who am I to say, you Argentines shouldn't do that shit? And in the United States, we do that all of the time. So it is, you're absolutely right. And I just love the idea that you're proposing a vaccine for Reaganism. I love that. I think I want that. We need that.
Yeah, I think it's coming. I think it's over. I really do believe that the Reagan statue's crumbling. His is better than mine. I don't even want to say mine now.
Come on. Mine's stupid. You want me to go next?
Yeah, no. You're the host of the show. You go. No, I mean, I so agree with that one. Well, I guess my vaccination was sort of, I wanted to vaccinate against reply guys. I want, and people who say I'm a libertarian. You can't say you're a libertarian anymore. I'm tired of people doing that out. You've got to say you support Linda LaRouche. Shut up. But yeah, reply guys. I will say as a middle-aged white man that I one day wrote I looked at something and I said, why are all these guys in this tweet explaining things to me and wanting to have a dialogue and all this stuff? I was like, I don't want to have any of this. And I said it to a comic friend of mine. I said, what is this? I go, why are they all bothering me? And they go, that's called a reply guy. And they're like, women, we get it all the time. And I went, really? Yeah. I got all these screenshots and I went, oh, this is awful. And as someone who's taught improv for many years, I've met many of them in person. So I really want an inoculation against white men in their 20s. Is there a way to do that? Just and including myself. I didn't like myself in my 20s either.
I have a friend who's like, she had a bit about how, dating is shitty. And she was like, where's a good war when you need one? We need to bring back the draft. Bring another draft in.
I did want to say that in my Trump versus Bernie tour in 2020, my friend playing Bernie had the Green New Deal advocacy, but I want to tell you just my bit, Bill, that I, as Trump, advocated for the brown old deal. And it was where we got rid of all catalytic converters, toilets flush 24 hours a day. We run sinks all the time. We run air conditioners during the summer and the winter and heat. And that was the Trump plan, was the brown old deal. And I thought you'd appreciate that.
Because he had a lot of problems with
it's frightening, because it's almost true.
Basically is exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The best thing about Anthony is every time someone in the audience would be like, boo, no, he'd be like, oh, like I haven't actually said this in real life. Why are you scandalized? This is literally the thing that I've said on national television.
The performative nature of the audience to get upset when you remind them that the nation was built on slavery, or that we are close to dying, and that the earth will continue. One thing to always remember, Bill would back me up, right? Earth will continue. We might be gone, but the earth will continue and survive in some fashion. And that's why it's
but with only the shittiest animals. It'll be roaches and rats.
We need to appeal to our narcissistic nature. I mean, I really feel it's astonishing to me. It's astonishing to me, just to say this. I wish, and of course Biden probably wouldn't do this. You said about the depression in the world. We need a warlike effort. And if there's ever a time to declare an emergency on a global scale, it's climate change. I mean, if there's an emergency that threatens humanity, and it astonishes me that even an emergency that threatens humanity, we can't get the stones to go this. And I think what you said was so important, that idea that, like, think of the advances in science and the sense of community construction and achievement around the world as an entire race, a human race. I can't believe we would people want to turn down that opportunity. To me, it's an opportunity to advance humanity beyond.
But I mean,
climate change.
I feel like we're in a dry run in the pandemic, and we have failed miserably. And in terms of that individualism, Bill, that you were talking about, I think it is American exceptionalism at its worst.
Some of that, but there clearly have been a lot of people who've done bad. But there've been an awful lot of great stories out of this pandemic too. I live in Vermont, and which has done better with the pandemic than probably any place in the country. And the reason is because everybody from day one wore a mask. Yeah. And we'll probably all, once the pandemic's long over, we'll still probably all just be wearing masks just to prove how nice we are to each other or whatever. But there's been a lot of that around the country. Yeah, look, part of our problem is that Trump was such a noisy jerk that it kind of it kind of overwhelmed a lot of other stuff that was happening. But though it was closer than it should have been, Trump got beat, and people who wanted a different kind of country persevered. And I think you can see more and more of them every day now coming out and saying, yeah, you know what, I kind of like this different world that Biden is talking about, the one where we wear masks so we take care of each other. And
that's why you're an organizer and an activist, Bill. Never forget that people who do this every day are optimists and want you to live life. And people who usually just scream into a microphone, like me, I'm an optimist, but lots of us are pessimists, like grifter assholes who want everything to just be a nihilistic ball of flames.
They like that nihilism. How else do they raise money?
Exactly. Speaking of which, patreon.com/bituation room. A couple comments. Lynn's Rob, I'd pump people full of compassion. Love it. Imea B Music on YouTube, something to vaccinate against delusion. Willie Gus, mRNA vax against law enforcement. MACAB. Cat Herder on YouTube, I'd like a vaccine for Ayn Randism. Definitely. Hell yeah. Mine. Okay, I'll say mine and I'll let you go. I want a vaccine against body dysmorphia. I'm sorry. There is nothing that is a bigger waste of time on earth than living in your human body and resenting it and feeling like you need to look a different way. You're not good enough. I'm not saying I don't have it. I do. I think a lot of women have it. I think a lot of people have it. So that would be great. Just fucking live in your body and be happy. Love it. Stretch out your calves. do some yoga, and love your body. That's it. No more body dysmorphia, and launch Kim Kardashian to the moon. That's all.
I love that. That would waste a lot of carbon, though. So.
It's very true. Her and the cat with the nice booty, just the two of them. The Biden cat.
Oh, the cat with the nice ass. Yeah.
Cat with a nice ass.
Yeah.
Love a cat with a nice ass. Bill McKibben, thank you so much for joining me and Anthony. Everyone follow Bill at Bill McKibben on Twitter. And anything else to plug, Bill?
If people are interested in this stuff, there's a free climate newsletter that I write for the New Yorker every week. So you can go track that down and keep abreast of what's happening.
Amazing. And right to your inbox?
No, just use that Google thing and Google New Yorker climate newsletter, and then you'll go there.
No more questions. Thank you so much, Bill. Have a great week, and I really appreciate you being here.
Take care.
And Anthony Atamanuik, where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter at Tony Atamanuik. You can watch my show, Coffee with Tony, on Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/shattyfatty. It's called Coffee with Tony, Monday through Friday, 12:30 Eastern to 1:30 Eastern. And I have Stephanie Kelton coming on this week. We do all kinds of things. I sing karaoke with myself. I do duets. We watch a Susan Lucci TV movie sometimes. We talk politics. We do it all. And I yell a lot about, as a big lefty, I yell about a lot of lefty grifters on my show. So you can go there to watch me scream.
Oh my God. Will you have me on, please? Please.
Yes. I get scared to ask someone of your caliber to come on my show. So of course.
Okay. All right. You can leave now. You've done enough. Anthony Atamanuik.
Spark the joint now?
Okay. Yes, definitely spark the joint. I was like, did he spark it before? Because he is a chatty. Definitely a sativa. Follow him on Twitter at, where was it? No, it's fine. Tony Atamanuik on Twitter, and of course on Twitch, Shatty Fatty. And thank you all for being here. Hey, thank you guys for your super chats over on YouTube to Ninja Joe, Nathan G, Pete from Oakland, Electric Blue Omelet Dragon, Noemi Green, Narf Vader, Tarnish 23, Chuck Diesel, and Wyleva. Thank you so much. Wyleva, this is my favorite show. My second favorite is TDR on Mondays. Oh my gosh, thanks so much for that. Really, really appreciate the super chats. And hey, once again, become a patron of this show. It really means a lot. Again, I don't have a special sponsor quite yet, working on that. But if you can, $1, $2, anything makes a big difference. And also we can communicate. It's better. It's easier. You'll get all the, bonus shows. And thank you to Rebecca Rufer and to Dorsey Shaw and Kelly Carey and to Ellie Hoffman on the other side of the show, making sure all the parts work and the trains run on time, although it's not fascism. And fight the patriarchy or fuck the patriarchy. I always forget whether it's fuck or fight. Fuck the patriarchy, fight the power, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Also, be a little bit like my man Tim Ryan.
Heaven forbid we pass something that's going to help the damn workers in the United States of America. Heaven forbid we tilt the balance that has been going in the wrong direction for 50 years. We talk about pensions, you complain. We talk about the minimum wage increase, you complain. We talk about giving them the right to organize, you complain. But if we were passing a tax cut here, you'd be all getting in line to vote yes for it. Now stop talking about Dr. Seuss and start working with us on behalf of the American workers. I yield back the balance of my time.
Ooh, okay, Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio. I see you. Even though Bernie Sanders schooled you that one time on Medicare for All, that's okay. Was that him? That was really fun. But that was good. That was about the PRO Act. We need to pass that PRO Act and abolish the filibuster. Okay, you guys, love you. Bye.